Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Pulp Crazy. I'm Jason Aiken, and this week's episode is going to be a special episode because I have a guest. His name is Mario Zakall, and he is a fan of the Chronicles of Riddick series, and he's also a Robert E. Howard fan. And how are you doing today, Mario?
Hey Jason, I'm good. Thanks for having me. This is cool. And you almost got my second name right. I'm impressed.
oh, is it Zakall?
Yeah, it's Zakall, but it's hard for the Americans to pronounce, I guess. So it's not a problem.
Oh, I'm sorry about that, but thank you very much for coming on. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so basically how I got here was that I saw your video that you did on Pulp Crazy about Riddick and his sort of relation to some of the Pulp characters, and I thought it was an interesting, cool video, so I commented on it about specifically about the Robert E. Howard characters and Riddick. I've been a pretty huge Riddick fan since the beginning, since Pitch Black, basically. So I'm interested in both of those things. So I commented, and you invited me to do this podcast about Riddick and the Pulp characters.
Oh, cool. Yep, I knew. As soon as I saw your comment, I was like, "Oh man, I haven't met someone who's a big Riddick fan and is also a big fan of the Robert E. Howard character." So I thought it would be pretty cool to talk to you. And we set this up. You said you came over to the U.S. here earlier this month, and you got to see the new Riddick movie actually in Los Angeles. How was that?
Right, I was on vacation in LA for 2 weeks, and I saw it there for the first time. It was pretty awesome. The German version, the German language version is pretty good, but it's always most of the times it's better in the original language when you see a movie. So that was pretty cool, and I got back this week to Vienna, and I saw it again in German. It was awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, I always like to watch a movie or TV show in whatever the original language is myself, and I'm not bilingual, but I don't mind reading the subtitles, so every Japanese or Hong Kong movie, that's usually what I go with too. But, so, what would you rate the new movie?
The score is always tricky, but, I would give it maybe 8 out of 10 or something.
Oh, very good.
I think it's pretty much on par with Pitch Black and Chronicles, the director's cut, They had a limited budget, so, it was kind of clear that the special effects wouldn't be, spectacular, but I think they did a pretty good job. There was a nice creature design again. And the visual effects were pretty decent for the budget that they had. And, I liked David Tui's writing. I think the dialogue was very funny. And, Riddick was back in, full anti-hero mode, so I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the overall kind of space western feel to it. And, the 3 distinct acts. The first act, you have, Riddick in survival mode, and it's first blood in space or something, and then the different mercenaries come in, and it's like a spaghetti western vibe, with Riddick instead of Clint Eastwood or something. And then you have the third act, which is basically a nice homage to Pitch Black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. It felt more like a side story as well, because it really didn't advance the whole necromonger plot to the Underverse as much as I would have liked, but given that they only had $38 million to do this, I think they made probably the best movie that they could make on that budget, and to do that they had to take it back to the Pitch Black roots. But yeah, I'd say my favorite part was probably that first half hour where Riddick's in First Blood mode and Jeremiah Johnson mode, where it's just him alone in the wilderness. I thought that was really well done.
Right. Right, and I liked his relationship with the Zakall that he raises and he trains. It's very cool. I was a little worried about that because I read an early draft of the script before the movie came out, and I was like, it's an animated character and it had a lot of screen time, so I was worried with the limited budget if they could pull it off. But I think it's a cool character, and it's really convincing, So it doesn't look too goofy or something. It's really believable, and it's like an emotional moment when the Zakall, spoiler everybody, when the Zakall gets killed.
Yeah. That was sad. That saddened me as well. It's kind of similar to, in the Chronicles of Riddick novelization, how, on Crematoria, Toombs kills that hellhound in the same way. That really, and it was kind of cool though, because, another Pulp connection, John Carter and Woola, his pet.
Right.
That kind of reminded me of that a little bit. It was kind of cool to see Riddick get his own Woola, in a way.
Yeah, it's also kind of a Mad Max thing. And they wanted to do more with the Hellhound in Chronicles. I guess they just didn't have, the extra money or something, or it would be too long if they did it. So they really got to play it out in full in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, for $38 million, I was really surprised at how good the CGI was. Not only for the Zakall, but the mud demons as well. They looked really good.
Right, yeah. And, back what you said about, they didn't really get to advance the Necromonger elements or the Furian elements, because in the early script there were some Furia sequences in there, and Shira was back.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously didn't have that. I guess they didn't have the time and the money to do that, or they didn't want to set it up too much.
Right.
The next one would be a Furian, because they don't know yet if they get to do the Underworld story next, or if they get to do the Furia story next.
Yeah, that's true.
I heard that the director's cut would be 10 minutes longer, and there's going to be the extended Necromonger flashback, and maybe an epilogue at the end, where, Riddick goes back for Crone or for Waco. We don't know yet. That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I read that as well. That's what, I think David Toohey gave an interview somewhere, and he alluded to the extended flashback and then an epilogue sequence. And I think both of them will tie into Waco. Yeah, I read the script, and I love seeing those scenes on Furya, but I can understand why they didn't actually film them, because that would almost require, different location shoots. They'd have to cast, an actor for the Alpha Kid.
Right, yeah. They also had, the simian creatures, who kind of attacked or had taken over Furya after it was half destroyed.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They would have that, so it's a lot of extra visual effects, so I guess they didn't do that because of money, and but it's fine. I guess it's also it would probably confuse some people who didn't see Chronicles, didn't see the director's cut, because the movie as it is now, it's third part of a series, but I guess almost everybody could understand it if they watched it, even if they hadn't seen Pitch Black or Chronicles. It's certainly beneficial if you have seen them. The way it is now, you don't really have to know the mythology and have to know about the Furians and the Necromongers.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch it and enjoy it, as a newcomer to the series. I would definitely recommend watching Pitch Black and watching the Chronicles director's cut, but the way it is now, you don't necessarily have to. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you just look at Riddick as a movie by itself, it explains it pretty well. Here's a guy, he was the leader of this army, they betrayed him, they left him on the planet, and now he has to fight for survival.
Right.
It's pretty. Yeah, that's a pretty good way of looking at it in case people don't have access to the other two movies, but now they're pretty readily available here on DVD and Blu-ray, and there's DVD, Blu-ray, digital bundles too. And they're not that expensive, especially the first, especially if you get that first DVD collection that has the animated feature Dark Fury in it. I think for a while at Walmart that was only like $9.99 or something, and that's a pretty good bargain for all three movies.
Yeah, I think you can get them pretty cheap. Yeah. And again, what you said about this is like a nice side story, and it is, but it's. I think they had to go in that direction, kind of, because they obviously didn't get the money to do the big underwear story, so they had to kind of find another way to continue. And I think David Twohy found a good and logical way to continue.
Mm-hmm. And even, I think now, they almost have the option open where, well, I really want to see the Underverse. It almost seems like they could kind of skip that a little bit if they wanted to and just go to Furya.
Yeah, I mean, that's the question right now. I'm pretty sure there will be another sequel because it's doing pretty solid at the box office, and now that Diesel owns the rights to the franchise, and it's a passion project for him and for Twohy, and I guess there will definitely be another sequel. It's just a question of, will they do the Furya story, which they could do on a smaller budget again, or if they can somehow get the money to do the big underwear story.
Because the Underverse, we just know it's kind of like an alternate universe. We don't know what it looks like, or even, I don't really even know how they would portray that on film.
Yeah,
like if it would be like a void.
That,
yeah, like if it's all black, if it's a void, if it looks like our universe. But
I mean, Twohy just mentioned it would be like it's a place of constant war and there are massive battles going on, and it would kind of be a Lord of the Rings style, in terms of scale.
Whoa!
And so I guess they would need more money, obviously, or they would have to kind of change the concept, change the setting, scale it down, and do it more like a creature movie again without big armies and stuff. So then they could do that, but I don't know if they wanted to change that. So.
Yeah, well, have you seen Valhalla Rising?
Yeah, I've seen that once. Yeah.
I was thinking, if they really wanted to scale the Underverse down, do you know when they kind of make it to the New World, the Vikings, and there's that whole sequence, and it's kind of shot like kind of weird. I was thinking that was probably done on a small budget, but the only thing with that is they only really had like, I think by that point 5 or 6 characters, and as you mentioned, if this is going to be like a massive scale open warfare type area, that would probably require a lot of extras, armor designs, weapons, that type of thing.
So they would have to kind of change the nature of the setting or something to pull it off on a 40-50 million budget or so. Or they will just do the Furya story and maybe then do the Underwear story last, or just do the Furya story. We'll have to see.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because like you said, it is doing pretty well financially, but by the end of this week here in America, it'll already make its budget back, and I think it's doing just as well worldwide, like in the foreign markets, it's made just as much as it has here. So that's really promising, and hopefully that'll allow them to, maybe get a little bit more budget going next time, since the demand's there.
Yeah, I think it's probably will end up doing like 90 million or something worldwide, and then on DVD and Blu-ray will be a nice profit, I guess. So yeah, I'm pretty sure there will be another sequel. It's just a question of when and what story it's going to be.
Right.
But I really liked the movie. Also, the supporting cast was pretty good. I like the Matt Nable. He gave a nice performance, and he's pretty much a newcomer. I think he hasn't been acting for too long. Dave Bautista, the wrestler turned actor, I think it was pretty funny. And obviously, Katie Sackhoff kicked ass. When you know her from Battlestar Galactica, it's basically like the sexy and tough role that she plays here. But it's very cool. I hope she comes back in the sequel.
Yeah, I really liked her, and I like her on Battlestar, and she's basically the major reason I watch Longmire now on A&E here. She plays a deputy on that. She dang near stole the movie from Vin Diesel, I thought. It was pretty close, and she almost stole it from him. Her performance was that good, I thought.
Yeah, right. It's also a new character, and it's the third time that Vin is playing Riddick, but he owns the role. I mean, he's always good in it. So.
Yeah, she was right up. I thought she was right up there with him, and I hope she comes back again for another movie.
Right. I mean, I think Vin Diesel mentioned that she would be back in the next movie. So.
Oh, that's good.
We'll see.
Yep. Well, speaking of those simian creatures that are on Furya now, I believe they're called the Adredan
Something
in the
like
script.
That, yeah.
This is also very interesting from the Pulp perspective, and especially with Robert E. Howard, because I thought this was another cool Conan connection, because Conan is no stranger to fighting simian gorillas or winged gorillas. I think he fought at least 3 of them that I'm aware of off the top of my head.
Right.
And I thought that might be a good way to lead into the Robert E. Howard discussion, and just the similarities between Conan, Kull, and Riddick. Should we start with Kull first, since he is Conan's predecessor?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of similarities, I actually did that post that I did on your site. I actually did, it was 2010 or 2009 when Facebook still had the discussion boards. Because on Vin Diesel's discussion boards, I put that post up, and he actually commented on it. It was like, Kull, very interesting, I should revisit that. So, but that was, I think the early script already existed by then. But it's interesting, a lot of interesting similarities. Obviously with Riddick, taking over the throne at the end of Chronicles, Kull takes over the throne, and Conan takes over the throne. Kull taking over, Valusia by killing King Borna. And then he's facing several assassination attempts, and he finds that it's not easy to keep the throne. And, it's pretty similar to what happens to Riddick. He has assassins coming after him, and, he ends up losing the throne. So that's a very interesting similarity right there. And also in terms of their backstory, that Kull was kind of a wild child, and, a savage, growing up in this valley, and he was actually, I think he was raised by he grew up among some wild animals, and then, ended up joining this tribe and becoming a strong warrior, similar to Riddick, who, what we know about his backstory, he had some military training as well as a young man, and became a good soldier and so forth, and then, got into prison several times. Kull opposes the laws and tradition of his tribe at some point, and he's exiled. And then, he kind of wanders around and becomes a pirate and stuff like that. Like Riddick became a mercenary at one point, and then the careers go a bit different. Like Riddick goes into prison several times and escapes and is hunted. But, he creates kind of this fearful reputation, becomes this kind of legendary figure, similar to Riddick. So I think there are a lot of, I don't know, I guess they didn't do that on purpose. I think it's just the way that this played out. But I don't know if they put that in on purpose, like at the end of Chronicles, where he, sits on the throne and stuff, similar to the shot in Conan. I mean, they said they did a commentary too, and Diesel did a commentary where they said it wasn't on purpose. It was kind of an accident. But
right.
It's still a striking similarity.
Oh, yeah, and especially once you start adding everything up. If I'd be really surprised if either one of them didn't read Robert E. Howard, but if they didn't, it's a really big coincidence because they're really hitting on some of the same type of themes. I was really surprised to see those simian-type creatures in the script for Riddick. I was just blown away because I also heard that commentary where they said it wasn't a coincidence. It was a coincidence, the whole him taking the Necromonger throne. But it just seems like all these coincidences are starting to add up.
Yeah, I guess I'm pretty sure, I don't know about Tui, I'm pretty sure that Diesel was familiar with the Robert E. Howard stuff, and he's also like a big Frank Frazetta fan, and he did a lot of Conan art and stuff like that. So, and he's a big Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy guy, so I'm sure he's aware of Conan and Kull and stuff. I don't know if he actually, put that stuff in on purpose, or if
it was kind of like maybe just resonating in the back of his mind or something. Yeah. Sometimes people do that without knowing it.
Yeah, I mean, they did go into a more like fantasy direction with Chronicles. That was done on purpose, and that was like Vin Diesel's input on it because he became a producer as well. So, and with the Furyans and the Elementals and the different races coming in, it was a lot more fantasy than Pitch Black, which was kind of a low-tech, gritty sci-fi.
Yeah. It would be more like sci-fi horror would be Pitch Black, and then with this they almost went into it was epic fantasy set in space with Chronicles. That's the first movie I saw was Chronicles, and I loved it. I watched it on HBO, so it was the theatrical cut.
Okay.
And then I went and got the trilogy at Walmart, and I watched the director's cut, and I was blown away. And I went back and watched Pitch Black, and I was really surprised how much I liked that. That was kind of like an Alien type movie. And Riddick he's just awesome in that too. And that had a pretty good cast as well, Pitch Black, and as did Chronicles too. That's one thing the series has going for it too. They have a very strong lead actor in Vin, and then his supporting cast that he surrounds himself with are all awesome. And too, I think he's one of like the most underrated writer-directors out there.
Definitely, yeah, he's a great writer. I mean, there's several like unproduced scripts of him that are floating around, and they're pretty good too. So I wish he would do more, or he would get to do more,
Mm-hmm.
And I just like how it's an original character, it's an original franchise, and they're able to kind of switch genres while keeping the same character.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Do you ever see The Perfect Getaway?
I saw that. Yeah,
that was really good. Tui wrote and directed that as well. If people aren't aware of that, and it has a pretty good cast in it too. I think if it would have came out today with that cast, it would have done probably extremely well in the theaters. Because Timothy Oliphant is in it, and even though his role's not that big, Chris Hemsworth is in it too.
Right. I think that was before Star Trek. That was before I did Star Trek, and obviously before 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right, because I think Star Trek is what got him out there, even though he was in that for only, 5 minutes. He played Captain Kirk's dad.
Yeah.
And then after that, he got to play Thor, and after his career just took off. But yeah.
I think too is good with casting and working with actors. Obviously, I think it was the first big leading part for Vin Diesel back then when he did Pitch Black.
Mm-hmm.
He put some other dudes on the radar, so.
Right. Well, let's see what else we could talk about as far as Kull and Conan and how they're similar to Riddick. I think you mentioned his women, the women in both series.
It's interesting about Conan, when he's saved by Belit, I think, and the Queen of the Black Coast, when he's almost killed, and it's very similar to kind of Riddick gets saved by, you could say, quote-unquote, saved by Fry at the end of Pitch Black, and then, obviously Fry dies, and then, in Chronicles, he's saved kind of by Kira, and Kira dies. Now in Riddick, he's again saved by Dahl, basically. But she doesn't die. So that's kind of a difference, but it's still, most of the women on his side, most of his sidekicks, don't last very long. And, the female characters often come to his help. Also, Shira, obviously, in the Chronicles Director's Cut, Shira appears and saves him, basically.
Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, in the Riddick script, we learn that, Shira has died on Furya, too.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know if she was kind of a spirit already, like in Chronicles. We don't quite know that chronologically.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see if she will come back in the next movie or something, or she will ever come back. And will also be interesting to see if they keep the kind of simian creatures, if they keep them as a threat on Furya, or if they will change that.
Right. Well, you mentioned Dahl, how she lives. I've kept 2 Robert E. Howard Conan stories back, so I haven't read them. I haven't read the Man-Eaters of Zambola or Red Nails, because I just don't want to run out of Robert E. Howard Conan stories yet. But I know in Red Nails there's a character named Vala. Have you read that one?
I have once. It's been some time. But I think she lives, right? She doesn't die.
Yeah, and I was wondering if she would be a good comparison to Dahl, because I think they're both described as Nordic and formidable warriors. And I heard the same thing that I heard that she didn't die as well. So that could be maybe another comparison. Whereas Fry and Kira are like Belit, Dahl's like Vala, I guess, in that respect.
Right, I think that's a good similarity. Yeah.
Let's see.
And some of the themes as well, like in the Howard stories, like it's barbarism versus civilization, and there's slavery and there's tyranny, and so that really kind of shares that with the Howard stories.
Yeah, and I think it's in the Pitch Black novelization we get a little bit more of Riddick's backstory, and it turns out he's in the penal system because when he was working as in that paramilitary or military organization, he was a guard on a mining colony, and instead of the workers actually being paid workers, they were more like slaves, and the guards were actually their jailers. And he didn't stand for that, and when he pointed this at his superiors, they basically put him in a frame job for a bunch of stuff he didn't do, and then they sent him to jail.
that's how he got into jail for the first time, I think, yeah.
And so even though he kind of comes off as kind of like a sociopath at times, I guess like Conan and Kull, he does have a moral code too, especially when it comes to children. He doesn't stand for anybody messing with kids especially, and that's how some of those mercenaries were able to capture him, I guess, like John's, by holding kids hostage and that type of stuff.
Right, I think that what makes him kind of likable in a way, that he has this code. You know, he doesn't kill anybody if they don't get in his way, and he has this affinity for animals and children. So you know, that makes him likable. But he's also, I mean, he's capable of, and he has no problem kind of with killing if he has to.
Yeah, and well, the other thing we mentioned were those how Conan he kind of battles ape-like creatures in some of his stories, and I think Queen of the Black Coast, there was a winged ape. I believe there was one in Iron Shadows in the Moonlight, where those statues come to life.
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
And, there was I forget the one where the guy actually trains an ape, and it's a gorilla, and it's an underground maze, or a house of traps. I forget the name of that one, though. There's a couple of them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it could be another coincidence, but maybe Tui checked out some of that stuff, and that's why he put the simian creatures in that early script, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are a lot of things that are different, but there are also a lot of similarities, so that's why we're talking about this. That's why we're pointing it out. And also, it's kind of really Riddick appears to be like this, you know, this Pulp character who's basically, you know, in space, you know, doing sword and sorcery stories in space and stuff like that. So. Oh
yeah, I think he'd be right at home in Weird Tales magazine for sure. Back in those early days where Robert E. Howard was writing in it. Another similarity they have is in Chronicles, you could basically call the Lord Marshal a dark wizard type character, and like a sorcerer, and I think probably we know Kull, one of his enemies was Thulsa Doom, and Conan, he fought, I think probably off the top of my head, at least 3 dark wizard type characters.
There were a couple, yeah.
And I think most of them were when he was king. When he was King Conan. And I think the Scarlet Citadel and that Hour of the Dragon. I forget, because one of them, the guy from Hour of the Dragon, Zoltan, he was the most formidable, I believe, and he came the closest to destroying Conan and taking his kingdom, from what I can remember.
Right. I think it would be really cool if we got more novels, and maybe graphic novels. Really, I think he would definitely fit that, and they could expand the universe further. I mean, there's a lot of gaps in his backstory, you know, as a young man, and they could go further into the future, so that would be interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to see how he got off Furya as an infant, because that's the one thing we don't know.
Right.
Yeah, because the necromongers laid waste to Furya, and they either enslaved or killed most of the people. And it's kind of and we know he was left like the Lord Marshal strangled him with his birth cord as an infant and left him there to die. And then somehow he made it out into the rest of the universe. And that's one thing that we're not quite sure how he did that.
Yeah. Right. And, some of his adventures between the prisons and, some of the prison escapes we haven't really seen. Obviously there was the game where, like he escaped from Butcher Bay,
Mm-hmm.
That was a great game, by the way.
Yeah.
Some of the other prisons we haven't seen or read about, and some of the stuff that he did in between. So there will be a lot of material to work with.
Yeah, I'd really like to see a novel that could kind of bring back that Slam City and kind of make that in continuity again. It seems like since Chronicles, that's kind of been out of continuity.
Yeah, it's kind of they kind of changed the canon after Pitch Black. Once they did all the Chronicles stuff, the movie and the games, they kind of they added this whole backstory, obviously with the Furian elements and so on. So that Slam City thing that they had, it's not really canon anymore, I guess.
Yeah.
Because now you saw how he really got his night vision.
Right.
In Escape from Butcher Bay. So now it's like they kind of established that he has kind of troubles with his memories, or he just chose to forget about that and kind of think about something else that happened. The eyeshine job, and that's the story that he tells in Pitch Black. But it's either it's a deliberate lie, or it's just how he chooses to remember it. But it's the canon is now that he is the Alpha Furian, and that's how he got his night vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that Alpha Furian, they go into that in the novelization. I believe that's what the Purifier calls him. And like you said, his eyeshine is a byproduct of being an Alpha Furian, and I assume it's also that Furian's Rage move that he has, which he could kind of unleash all that energy and anger, and they haven't really said if he has any other powers, but he seems to be, even for a Furian, in peak physical condition, and he's able to dislocate his limbs.
Right, yeah. He's just, we don't know too much about the Furians or the Alpha Furians yet. It's just kind of, Alpha Furians are kind of supposed to be the strongest of their kind. He's stronger and he's faster and he can regenerate and stuff like that. But I guess we will learn more about that if when they do the Furia story.
Mm-hmm. That's really what I'm looking forward to. I mean, ideally, I hope they do make 2 more movies, but just in order to kind of move the story along, I wouldn't mind if they put a little bit of the Underverse in to the next one, and then after that kind of go right to Fury. I am interested in seeing an Underverse movie, but I'm just worried if they make another one and for some unforeseen reason that doesn't do well, they won't be able to get the end game of Furya. Yeah.
Right.
But like you said, I think this series is ripe for tie-in novels and more video games too. But I especially think that this series reads very well. The adaptation by Alan Dean Foster, especially for the Chronicles of Riddick, that felt like I was reading a fantasy novel. He did a really good job on that.
Right, and that's pretty cheap to produce. I mean, you don't need that much money. And when you do a movie, they could do graphic novels, or they could do more games, which I guess they will, and they could do more animated features, perhaps. And Bing could always do the voice. I mean, he obviously can't play this guy forever, physically, but he could always provide the voice for the next I don't know, 2 decades or something.
Oh yeah, easily.
So that wouldn't be a problem. So they could, after the kind of the live action series ends, they could still, and I guess they will go on to do more games and stuff. So.
Yeah, I could definitely see them doing more games, some novels, graphic novels. That motion comic I thought was pretty cool. You could tell they didn't have that big of a budget, but I thought that turned out pretty good, that Blindsided motion comic. I wouldn't even mind seeing more of those, to be honest. I'd just like to see more stuff in between these movies, you know?
Right, like Dark Fury was a nice bridge between Pitch Black and Chronicles. Blindsided was nice. Basically, in Blindsided you have kind of the more extended Necromonger flashback scene. I guess there will be more of that in the director's cut for the movie.
Yeah, from what I heard, Vako, actually, I guess when he was just starting out as a Necromonger, he was pretty young, and he actually took part in the invasion of Furya. He was actually there, so that could be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there were some interesting changes that Tui made from the early script to the finished version, which is like in the script, I think it was more like Vako just gave the order to go to Furya, so it wasn't like a secret, but like Crone betrayed them both, and he killed Vako, he tried to kill Riddick. So like Crone was the big bad guy. He was kind of behind that conspiracy.
Yeah, I was surprised to see that in the script when I read it, but I wonder if that was the case of maybe Carl Urban at the time wouldn't be available, since that was written in 2009. Maybe at that time his schedule was jammed and he wouldn't be able to come back.
Maybe, because now in the movie it seems like it's kind of Vako's plan, but I don't know, we will have to wait for a director's cut.
Oh yeah, as soon as that release date gets put out there, I'm going to mark that down on my calendar and just count down the days, because I really can't wait to see that. I've only seen it in the theater once so far. I'd like to go back and maybe see it a second time here before it stops its theatrical run here in the States, though.
Right, yeah, it's very cool. But some very interesting changes, like the Boss Jones character was like the big brother of Kohlhaase's character in the script, and then they changed it to being his father, which kind of a little bit bothered me, because Matt Nable doesn't look that old.
No.
Of course, you can explain that. You can explain that with cryosleep, but it's kind of unnecessary to.
Yeah, I always thought it was his big brother, too, from the script. And when it said he was his father, it was like, whoa, wait a minute, these two are probably about the same age.
Because, it's kind of confusing, so it's unnecessary. They could have just kept him being the brother, and it would be just as strong a motivation for him to go after Riddick, so.
Oh, yeah.
I don't really understand that change, because they did cast Matt Nable. I mean, if they did cast an older guy, I can understand why they would change it to being his father, but, after they cast Matt Nable, I would just keep the character as brother, so.
Yeah.
Confused by that.
But, yeah, it should be interesting to see what happens here, because I've been watching Box Office Mojo pretty much every day or two just to see how the film's doing, and it seems to be doing pretty well, so I'm hoping we get a sequel at least in the next maybe 3 or 4 years. I know it seems like Vin Diesel has a pretty full plate right now, but I hope
he has lots coming up. Yeah, and he said he's not going to be able to do that kind of as fast as the Fast and Furious films. So.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess maybe 2016 or something.
Yeah, that's what I would be hoping. But it's really good that these Fast and Furious movies are doing so well since him and the original cast came back, and that kind of allowed him to do this Riddick movie. So I hope if he keeps doing those Fast and Furious movies, Universal will keep, distributing the Riddick movies for him.
Right.
Since that's a kind of a mutually beneficial relationship, it seems, especially since this one's gonna make back at least twice its money here.
Right. I mean, they're pretty fun movies too. I mean, they really became good again on when they did the fourth one. I mean, like the second and the third one, not so much. But since Vin took over as the producer as well, the fourth, fifth, and sixth were very entertaining. So
yeah, I think, and they were very financially successful too. I think worldwide they made a lot of money. But
right, I think they will end up doing 9 or something. So.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. I even heard rumors that that they were maybe going to bring back Cole Hauser's character from the second one.
That would be kind of funny.
Down the line, yeah. That would be interesting. They put him in jail, but they even alluded to at the end of the second one that he wouldn't be in jail for long. He had the reach and he had the money. He'd probably get out eventually, and a good bit of time's passed since then.
And they could throw in a Pitch Black reference or something.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. Get to see him and Vin fight each other again.
But what I would really like to see is like they did cast Bautista in this one, and they had a little fight. It wasn't a big fight. Obviously, they didn't have the time and the resources to do like a big fight, like rehearse it a couple of weeks and shoot it over a couple of days, like they did in Fast 5 with Dwayne Johnson or something. But it would be interesting to see kind of Riddick in the next movie or in the movie after that to go against a physical opponent, kind of have a real crazy fight or something.
Yeah, because I think in the Riddick script, Diaz, he wasn't supposed to be like a super big guy. Because I think in the script, Riddick just grabs the knife, the sword, out of the trench he dug, and then he just kills Diaz. But then I think when they cast Dave Bautista, they were probably like, oh no, we gotta have them actually fight here in some way.
It's like in the early script, it was very quick. Yeah, it was quicker than in the movie. And obviously, once they cast Bautista, I guess they added in a little bit more of a fight. Yeah,
which was pretty. It was short, but it was pretty cool. I like how he kind of had Riddick up in the Iron Cross there,
right?
And then Riddick did that flip kick.
It was nice. Yeah, short but sweet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Other than, I just really hope that, I'm glad to see that this movie's doing well financially, so we could hopefully see it continue in some way, because, I don't know about you, but 9 years was way too long of a wait.
It was way too long, and if we would have another decade, I think that would be too long, I guess.
Yeah.
For Vin to play the guy, I mean.
Yeah, he's still in good shape, but, I mean, eventually, it's gonna, because he does look similar to Riddick in Chronicles, but eventually you're gonna show your age one way or another, and it's just gonna look like too much time has passed between them, because I think there's, 5 years difference between Pitch Black and Chronicles, right?
Yeah, it's not really sure how much time passes. I think it's supposed to be like 5 years between Pitch Black and Chronicles. And now between Chronicles and this, we don't quite know. It could be a couple of months, it could be 1 or 2 years. We don't really know.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that wasn't planned, obviously. The plan was for the movie after Chronicles to kind of pick up right at the end, after the end of Chronicles, and going to the Underverse, obviously. But that didn't happen. So
yeah,
I mean, it would be kind of weird to have it be like 10 years or something, with Riddick on the throne.
Oh yeah, because that would mean they were going to the Underverse for 10 years.
Yeah, and what did they do? I mean, they have this big army that just hang around. Riddick doesn't really want to be there, you know.
Yeah.
Has some fun with the ladies, but, you know.
And he got soft.
So I guess it's maybe 1 year or 2 years or something.
Mm-hmm. I thought his Lord Marshal armor was pretty cool looking.
Yeah, that was pretty nice for the budget that they had.
Mm-hmm. That headpiece. That seemed really awesome. And then, well, he kind of had like some light armor when he went down to the planet at first. They did a pretty good job on like all the necromonger designs for such a low budget, I thought.
Right. And there was like the clever use of that shot, the one shot where all the soldiers bow to him and he sits on the throne. That's basically the zoom shot at the end of Chronicles, and then they built kind of the throne, and they had a green screen background or something, and they kind of sits down in a different outfit, and that's how they just reversed the zoom, so instead of going back, they're pushing in, and that's how they got that one shot. So they didn't have the money to rebuild the Basilica set, so they just used that shot and added a new element to it, and that's how that shot came about.
Oh, that's interesting.
So that was very clever. And then they just have his kind of king chamber, which is kind of very dark and anyway, so don't really see a lot. It was very clever.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the other thing that we'd have to see would be more elementals, hopefully, since they seem to be a big part of the backstory. With it seems that they highly hinted that Arion was the prophet that gave the Lord Marshal that prophecy that he'd be killed by a male Furian way back when.
Seems to be, yeah. It would be interesting to explore more of them and see what their real agenda is and stuff. And I mean, Vin talked about doing or showing other elementals like fire and water in the sequels. So obviously that didn't happen in this one, but maybe in another one.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool if they showed some of them while they were on Furya and actually maybe see them in combat somehow. If they do that, they seem to be pretty neutral though, so I'm not sure if they'd actually get into any fights or not. They try to. It seems like they try to stay out of it, and they say they try to stay neutral. But it seems like Arion had that big agenda, and this was her end game all along.
Yeah, it's kind of more diplomatic and political manipulation and stuff. But I guess if they would be forced to fight, if they would attack, if they would be attacked, it would be pretty interesting. Yeah,
I wonder what would happen since I don't know if Arion, when she vanishes, if she becomes if anyone tried to hit her, if the fist would connect, or if she could just kind of evaporate around them. I think that would be pretty cool to see just what they were like in a combat situation, but it seems like their main thing is to just balance the universe and not really get too involved unless they have to in order to balance everything back in place.
Right.
And I think those are traditionally elementals are in fantasy games and literature, so that's probably something Vin Diesel added, I would think, to Chronicles.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's kind of a Dungeons and Dragons influence, yeah. But we'll see what they do with the Furians, and what to do with the Necromongers in the Underverse. I mean, they really have the chance to be, very original there. So,
yep.
I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah. No matter how they put it out, if it's in a book, or a movie, a graphic novel, whatever they put out next, I'll definitely be interested in it, and I'll definitely go see it or read it.
They could do a kick-ass game with all this big universe now, this multiverse actually, with all the different races, they could do like a big MMO, for example, or something. I mean, Vin talked about the next game. They're like reassembling the Starbreeze guys, and they're actually doing another game. We don't know when that's gonna be out. Maybe with the next movie or something. But he teased it, and he said it's kind of about the mercenary world, and it's kind of maybe an MMO or something where people get to play mercenaries.
Yeah, that could be pretty
strange,
interesting.
like a Riddick game without Riddick, but it's kind of set in the same universe, and it's centers around the mercenaries, so that could be cool as well.
Yeah, and then they got that iOS game. I haven't played it yet. That the Merc Files.
Right, I haven't played that either yet. Yeah.
I'll get it when it comes out on Android. I don't have a iOS device, but it looks pretty good. I like the type of graphics that they have there. It seems like kind of like a Metal Gear Solid stealth type game. Right.
What also would like to see is kind of maybe a TV miniseries or like an HBO like show, or maybe with Boss Jones and Dahl as the mercenaries, and that kind of the merc trade, and kind of how they hunt down other convicts and stuff. That would be interesting too.
Oh yeah. Well, Spawn, the comic book character, he had a HBO animated series years and years ago, and I could definitely see Riddick and his universe being a pretty cool HBO series, or maybe even like on Adult Swim. Although even for Adult Swim, Riddick is probably a little bit too bloody at times.
Right, they have to tone it down.
Yeah.
But on HBO, a live action series or miniseries, that could really work well. Yes.
Yeah.
So a lot of possibilities. We'll have to see what they do next. But it's like the best we got in terms of a modern day kind of pulp series film. So.
Yep, I definitely agree. He's like Tarzan. He's got a little bit of a dark Doc Savage in him. The Calling Conan. And
right.
With his
Unfortunately, the new Conan with Jason Momoa wasn't that great and didn't do that well. I think.
Yeah.
Just visually, the Momoa fit the part very well, so that's kind of unfortunate.
Oh yeah, and you could tell they were trying to. They put in like a couple references to like the Tower of the Elephant in there, just that were kind of throwaways. You could tell that they were trying, but it was an average sword and sorcery movie at best, and it really wasn't that good of a Conan movie.
Yeah. And now it seems that they go back. They want to do with Schwarzenegger. They want to do another one. So
yeah.
What happens with that? I enjoyed the Solomon Kane movie that Michael J. Bassett did with James Purefoy. I thought that was pretty good. But it didn't do much business, I guess. Maybe on home video. I don't know.
Yeah, I got to watch that probably last month on Blu-ray. And I did like it. I mean, it wasn't 100% Robert E. Howard, but they were basically just wanting to kind of put out an origin story for him.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty good. I liked it. It had some great sets. The fight scenes were good. He did a good job. James Purefoy did a great job as Solomon Kane.
Yeah, and he kind of really becomes the character, like at the end when he rides off.
Yeah,
they could go on, do more direct adaptations.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of why people are disappointed in a lot of the Robert E. Howard adaptation movies. Well, not even adaptations, because people aren't adapting any specific stories. They're just kind of doing their own variation of Conan and Solomon Kane. And even though I thought Solomon Kane was pretty good, I think it would have been cool to see some of his stories be directly adapted, especially the ones in Africa that take place in Africa. I think those would be really good. Some of those are my favorites.
Right, they would be cool, yeah.
Wings in the Night, that would be really good. Where it's all those like gargoyle-like harpies that are coming after him.
Right. I don't know the name. I read, I think, most of the African stories. Yeah, they're really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool. Obviously, they would be, I guess, a little bit more expensive than the last one. And since the first one didn't do much business, I doubt that they will get to do a sequel, at least with Purefoy. Maybe in a couple of years they will give it another go, but so far the Howard adaptations weren't that good or not that faithful. So I hope that will change in the future.
Yeah. Well, alright, Mario, I think we pretty much covered some good ground here about Riddick and Robert E. Howard and the Pulps. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No problem. This was cool. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. The pleasure was all mine. Any place on the web where people can find you that you want to plug and give out?
Not really yet. I mean, I used to do like a movie-related podcast with a couple of buddies. We don't do that right now. It's kind of on a hiatus. I'm thinking about doing like a podcast again about, storytelling in general and kind of different mediums, like focused on fantasy and sci-fi. But it's not really anything concrete yet, so watch this space. I will let you know if something like that starts.
Oh, that sounds pretty cool. And do you have a Twitter where people could follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter and on Facebook, so you can find me there.
Okay, yeah, I'll put those links in the show notes there.
Right on.
Yep. Well, thanks again for coming on.
My pleasure.
This is Jason Aiken and Mario. And
Zakall, yeah.
Yep, Mario. And this is on Pulp Crazy. Pulp Crazy is located at pulpcrazy.com. We're at Pulp Crazy on Twitter and facebook.com/pulpcrazy. You can also email me at pulpcrazy@gmail.com.
And you also got the Riddick fan site, right? You got the Riddick Chronicles.
Oh, yes. RiddickChronicles.com is my Riddick fan site. Thanks, Mario, for reminding me about that.
You're welcome.
Well, very good. Thanks for listening, everyone. And we'll see you next time.
All right. Bye.